All right, folks. Thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. The time is now 6:31. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a full council present here. If you'd please rise for the invocation with the Councilman Mark Allen.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you once again for this opportunity for city leaders, city staff, and the citizens we serve to gather together here tonight to help shape our city's future. As we make our way through this pandemic, Lord, please look after the sick and allow them to recover fully as they resume their normal, healthy lives. Please provide comfort and understanding to those whom have lost loved ones to COVID-19. Finally, Lord, please continue to keep our police officers, our firefighters, and our brave men and women in uniform safe from harm as they bravely protect and defend us. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, we're going to start with the public hearings. The first one of three. The City of Cibolo City Council will conduct a public hearing to hear public testimony regarding a variance request per UDC 17.1L to reduce the 20-foot landscape buffer requirement 10 foot between Legacy Traditional School and the property east parcel number 63769 SF5 for certain real property located at 3200 Cibolo Valley Drive. Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, this is the public hearing only portion of this item. We are conducting the second public hearing, and it is for a landscape variance to UDC section 17.1.L. It is for the Legacy Traditional School, Siblo School of Excellence in Education. Per our UDC, non-residential and multifamily landscape buffer requirements require a non-residential use adjacent to or directly facing a family zoning district shall provide a minimum 20-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the property line of a residential use or zone property. The applicant's request is to reduce this 20-foot requirement to 10 feet along the northeast property line of the project. The process for a landscaping variance per our UDC is processed and handled in the same manner as a zoning variance with a recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission to City Council. For the public hearing portion, the notice was published in the local paper, city website, as well as site signage, and individual letters were sent by mail to 61 property owners. Staff has received 0 letters in opposition and 0 letters in favor of. Public hearings were, the first one was with Planning and Zoning Commission on December 8th, and the second was City Council tonight. City Council action on this item has been requested by the applicants to be placed on the January 25th meeting. If the applicants would like to make a presentation, or you would like to open the public hearing with the applicant's presentation, or if you have any questions for staff, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Are the applicants here this evening? If they'd like to make a brief statement, I'd welcome them up. Okay. All right, the time is now 6:35. I'd like to open this public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Mr. West?
On the variance request, correct?
I'm sorry?
On the variance request?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Good evening. Make sure this is on this time. My name is
sir.
Todd West. I live at 117 Brush Trail Lane. And I want to discuss this issue today, if I can get the right documents up. I was waiting for citizens to be heard to bring up a different issue, but that's so many pieces of paper. Oh. Okay, I think I got them in order. Sorry. Okay, I'm here to speak out against the variance request from the School of Excellence, aka Legacy Schools. I'm against them giving them the land for free and further impacting District 5 residents, both current and future. I also would like to point out that District 5 Representative John Frias from the Planning and Zoning Committee has indicated publicly that he would have voted against this variance request, but was out of town on an emergency during the meeting. This would have made it a split vote from the Planning and Zoning Committee coming to you tonight. And I believe this request should be denied outright as it is self-imposed hardship and doesn't even qualify for the approval. UDC Section 17.1 Landscaping and Buffering sets the minimum standard for all new construction, including schools. And that minimum standard is 20 feet. And that's to enhance the community's ecological diversity, environmental quality, beautification, and overall human experience in the community. This goes into the shining from the lights, the cars running, et cetera, for all the neighbors there, okay? The developer has now told us that the reason they're requesting the buffer is so it doesn't impact traffic on Cibolo Valley Drive. I'd like to remind City Council and the developer of the TIA submitted by the developer that indicated that school had plenty of queue space and would not impact CBD traffic. City Councilman Mark Allen and I presented our findings that opposed what the developer submitted. We also submitted a poll taken by District 5 residents showing the majority of the residents were against the school being built. All for naught, as obviously it was approved, and now the developer is asking for a variance for more queue space. Ma'am, did you get the slide for me? I'm gonna go on to that in just a second. The mayor then asked if approval could be postponed to conduct a new TIA, and the developer stated it would be harmful and the school could not open on time as planned. I'd like to bring up a slide from the developer that was submitted and approved by the city. Their 4.4 circulation plan that was part of the TIA is behind you here. I want to point out a couple things. This plan clearly indicates and states that maximum peak drop-off and maximum peak time, they need 1,781 Q feet to keep the city, Cibolo Valley Drive clear. They go on to point out and state that they have a total of 6,184 feet to work with. So if their max need, and they're not going to impact traffic, was 1,781 at the highest level, and they have 6,184 feet, what is 10 feet going to do for them? That's 4 times what they say they need not to impact our traffic. And this was submitted to you and is in your packets. So now they tell us they need the variance of 20 feet barrier down to 10 feet so they have more queue space to not impact this traffic. I would like to simply ask, which plan was false? The one submitted and approved by the city that led to the approval of the school in the first place, or this variance request? Because it's got to be one of them. You can't put this in there and say, hey, we got plenty of space, it's not going to impact CBD, and then turn around and say, oh man, the city, we need more space to get cars off the road. You can't have it. So if this is denied, the school is still being built. You can come over and look at all the limestone dust on my cars and my house currently. And according to their TIA, the impact on the streets will not be impacted. So the excuse when and if it happens, any negative impacts, wrecks, or fatalities will lie solely on the developer and not the city, in my humble opinion. If you got any questions about that, you can ask me. Also, I want to point out that District 5 conducted a poll once again on Facebook, and again, an overwhelming number is against the approval of this variance. 76 residents are opposed, with 4 residents that were for it. I cross-referenced the 76 names and came up with also names that were on the target letter. I asked those 76 names, the people that were in the impact zone, why they didn't return the notification letter and oppose. They stated the city will do what they want anyway. Point, period. I asked that you help me prove these folks wrong and all residents that this is not the case and to vote with the majority against this request. I further find it odd that the target letters were also sent to certain HOAs, but not others. Our HOA did not receive this. Mr. Freeman, our HOA president, received it, and he has voted against, opposed. I would also like to say that I love my neighbors. I'm sure y'all do too, but I don't want them 10 foot closer to my house. I mean, honestly. So we have future plans to build back there. Residents, let's protect their rights and their space and deny this request. And also, lastly, if this is approved, it will be hard denying any variance request from now on. Thank you and Godspeed.
Thank you, Mr. West.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there anyone else to speak on this item? Time is now 6:41. I'd like to close the public hearing. Second public hearing we have is the City of Cibolo City Council will conduct a public hearing to your public testimony regarding variance, the sign ordinance 1188 on-premises signs, single non-residential building to increase height and total square footage to the proposed monument sign located at 2979 FM 1103. Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we are conducting the second public hearing as well as action on this item. The applicants are requesting a sign, comprehensive sign program, and it's per our sign code 1342. And this process is similar to a rezoning with public hearings and notices. The project name is Quick Trip Store number 4031. And in your packet, you'll have the application, presentation letter, as well as a notification map and responses. Quick Trip has submitted 3 potential signs with their locations, dimensions, and design as shown within this report as sign number 1, 2, and 3. Since this is the public hearing of this portion, which with action later tonight, I do want to note that it was also posted in a local newspaper, official website, site signage, and we sent letters to 3 property owners within 200 feet of the site. We've received 1 letter in opposition and 0 letters in favor of. First public hearing was with the Planning and Zoning Commission on December 8th, second tonight, as well as action. I do want to note, since we are taking action tonight, that the P&Z did make a recommendation of approval as a 5-0 vote, as requested by, with the signage that is as requested by the applicants. We can go ahead and open the public hearing unless you have any questions for staff. If not, the applicants, I believe, are here to make a presentation.
Time is now 6:43. Open the public hearing. I want to give the first look at our applicant. Come on up, Dan.
Thank you. My name is David Wanders with Quick Trip. We're located at 742 Northwest Loop 410 in San Antonio. Do they have the current?
It's part of the.
Do you have the slideshow available for that?
There's nothing else attached? I guess if you scroll down.
Yeah, it should be, there you go. There you go. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Yeah,
Bear with us, David.
yeah, no problem. All right, it looks like it is in the, in a form of, printed documents. This was originally a PowerPoint, but we'll still be able to get through it. I'll just kind of lead you going through there. So Mayor, council, staff, and guests, so thank you so much for coming. You know, I do want to, I know some of you have seen this before already, but I think the main thing is at being new to the city, I do want to give a little bit of background on Quick Trip, and I know we've got a full docket, so I will try to get through this as quickly as I can while still providing you guys that information and hopefully allow you to make a better decision on this. We're very excited to be here in Cibolo. We look forward to bringing a store here. Just a little bit of background on myself. I'm a real estate project manager with Quick Trip. I'm from the Phoenix division. About 4.5 years ago, I moved here with my family. And, you know, what I want to show you here today is that, as it shows there, that Quick Trip is more than a gas station. And then I'll get to the details specifically on this site. Go ahead. So a little bit about the history of Quick Trip. Started in 1958, and you can see there that we have had growth pretty well over the last few decades. The 400th store back in 2002, and then some of the items that we don't show on there, actually the 800th store was in San Antonio just a few years ago, and then recently to 900 stores, and we continue to grow. We're a privately owned company that where the employees own the largest share of Quick Trip. And we've been that way since our beginning. We now have 57 stores in the entire San Antonio / Austin market. And we continue to grow, honestly, as fast as our culture allows us to grow. And I'll talk a little bit about more on the next slide. Our purpose from the very beginning, to provide opportunities for employees to grow and succeed. That is our founder, Chester Cadjo. He unfortunately passed a few years ago. But it is very common for our employees to be around Quick Trip for a very long time. Myself, I've been with the company for 16 years. My coworker who's not here today, Mike Wooten, has been with the company for 20 years. And it really shows that opportunity as we promote from within for people to have a career with Quick Trip. Core values, real quick: be the best, focus long term, never be satisfied, do the right thing, and do what's right for Quick Trip. Those are all, every decision we make as a company are based on those. All right, a few facts about Quick Trip. 16 years on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for, and perennially on the top 100 privately held companies. You can see also that we provide a number of jobs with each store, 20 to 25. That grows as people continue to move up and they can be promoted and move to other stores, and more jobs are provided. Pays very well. You can see there, some people don't believe it, but the average store manager is about $85,000, and they can make up to $130,000. Even starting off the street as a full-timer, they're making about $50,000. Part-time pay between $11 and $13.50, depending on how much they want to work, hours. And then some of the things on the bottom here: United Way, Safe Place, and Folds of Honor. United Way, we're often one of the largest providers in each of our markets with company matching for those. Safe Place, very proud of that. We help, Safe Place helps endangered youth, so they come to our store and say that they are endangered, whether through homelessness or abuse. We provide them literally a safe place in the store while we call the authorities, and they come and talk to them and figure out what's the next best step for them. And then finally, Folds of Honor. Folds of Honor is started by Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, and that provides scholarships for the family of fallen and injured soldiers. And it started out as a very small charity, and with Quick Trip's partnership, it's very large now. We actually hold an annual, it's a NASCAR race, the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 in Atlanta. Just recently, also, it's not on here, I saw yesterday actually, Forbes Halo list, which is the brands that customers love nationwide. Number 1, 2, and 3 on that list were Costco, In-N-Out, and Chick-fil-A. And number 36 on that list was Quick Trip. And that's with barely 900 stores across the nation. A few years back, we were voted best C-store restroom from Gas Buddy. That was by their users. And we know that Buc-ee's is great. We love them. And everybody loves their bathrooms. There's no doubt about that. We were able to best them in this one. They have taken over that since then, but we work every year to try to get that back and give you the best restrooms there. Our security is very important. We provide excellent security for all our employees, our customers, our vendors. That is an actual picture of our headquarters in Tulsa, where there is a wall of cameras, 24/7 monitoring, belt clips, buttons inside the store, anything to make sure that everybody is safe in their environment. And there's a quote by Tulsa County Sheriff's Department on the bottom there that they appreciate it. And I think every municipality is going to appreciate what security we can provide and the assistance we can provide for that. The next slide, it's a lot of triangles and weird shapes. That shows our overall coverage of cameras on our sites to show that we, again, do take this very seriously and it's very important to us. I'll go through the next ones pretty quickly here. You can go ahead and flash through these. This is our food. Apologies during this time that we got pizzas, we got barbecue sandwiches, tacos, grilled cheese. There's everything's made to order and grab and go as well. All right, so here is our store location. This is our beautiful Generation 3 store that would be providing here. It provides a better overall look than the old shoe boxes that convenience stores used to have, and architectural enhancements and different items like that. That is our canopy. It's sleek and modern, and it provides visibility through there for safety as well. All right, so to the signs here, you can see this was our proposed site plan. We are still currently working on other site plans within the same area. In general, though, the sign locations would remain. You can see here, the three that we are discussing are the one along 1103. That is a monument, a vertical monument sign. One along Wiederstein, and that is what we'd call a horizontal monument sign. And then the one on very top is just what we call a directional sign. It just points that says, hey, you can enter here for our business. All right. So a little bit of, are you able to zoom in on that just a little bit? Thank you. So specifics for the sign along 1103, what's allowed by code, one freestanding sign with a max height of 7 feet and total square footage of 120, which is 60 per side. What we are proposing is still one freestanding sign. The total height would be 15, 5 3/4 inches. And the total square feet is just a little bit over 67 square feet per side. And just to note that the base of the sign takes up about 3 feet of that overall height. And obviously that is for just the visibility of getting over, whether it's landscaping, bushes, whatever items that may be, and also just a connection to the ground. So some specifics when it comes to our request here. So this is looking both northbound and southbound on 1103 as you approach the intersection. And initially it's hard to kind of understand maybe what it is we're looking at. But as you can see, essentially this intersection lies at the bottom of a hill. And it is the visibility of that section or of that intersection that is the primary reason for this request. 1103, so as you're going northbound towards the intersection, and this was one item that I had wanted to add to it, but I didn't have that time to do that. During planning and zoning, they asked some specific questions regarding the fall. How much does that road drop? And as you're heading northbound, and I have papers here, I'm happy to pass around if you guys would like to see them. As you're heading northbound, the peak of that hill is at 859 feet in elevation, and then the intersection itself is at 803. That's a drop of about 56 feet within a pretty short time frame. Coming southbound, and that's the picture on the right, it's a shorter distance. It is a shorter drop as well. The peak of that hill is at 825, and again goes down to 803 at the intersection, so about a 22-foot drop in a pretty small area. And if you go ahead and go to the next slide, you'll see that what we're talking about in this location. So when you're regarding the speed of traffic, so 45 miles per hour is the speed limit. So obviously give and take how fast cars are going. As a vehicle-driven business, it's necessary to provide a safe way to communicate product and prices to passing traffic. The sooner drivers can see and process the information, the safer it is for them to be able to slow down and shift direction or get direction to our store. And the speed of the property combined with the grading location, the intersection creates necessity for better visibility to signs. To be honest, when we look at each store, signs do cost money. So we don't just want the absolute tallest, the biggest, widest sign that we can provide. Every addition does cost money. What we want to provide is what it states there, the safe way for people to see what it is that the gas price or the product that's being sold, and be able to make a decision, move over a lane, get into the turn lane, and pull in. With the hills that are there and the speed of traffic and this being at the bottom of the intersection, that is why we are requesting that, because we believe that what we are requesting here, although I would say shorter and smaller than a similar location in other areas, maybe in the San Antonio area along a major road, many of our signs are about 35 feet tall. Obviously this one, knowing what code is and talking with staff about what we could get to, we were able to get down to our request of about 15 feet tall, and it still provides the basic information for drivers. It is very difficult to see in the slide. Maybe you guys can see it closer on there, but we actually were able to have our design team put in the sign on Google Earth. However they do that on their computers, they're able to show that, and it's actually behind the traffic signal a little off to the right. And so you can even see in that, even though this is a picture on a screen, what we're asking for is not egregious. We're not asking for something that is going to blind people from a mile away. It's something that as they get closer, they can see that and spot it. Again, in this case, there's trees, there's nothing developed there. And even the location is off to the side. We know that 1103 is being worked on, will be expanded. So that takes that into account. Go ahead. This is just an overview that we had our design team put together. Again, we are looking at another layout option, but the signs would remain the same. I did not put any of the overall landscaping on there because I wanted you guys to be able to see generally what we're looking at here. Again, with the road, with its location, this is not, we don't believe anything egregious or above what would be recommended or expected in the area. So for the signs along Old Wiederstein, the code states one freestanding sign with a max height of 6 feet, total square footage of 100, which is 50 per side. And there's also, again, a little bit about a directory sign in the code. What we are requesting is that one freestanding sign. The total height is a little bit over 8 foot, 2 3/4 inches. I can't read it from here, but I believe it's about 2.5 feet of base. And then the total square footage on that is 62. So again, or 62 per side. So a little bit over what is requested or what is allowed. The directory sign is actually, it does not give any prices, and it just allows people to know that they can enter in that drive. It's actually 6 total square feet for the QT portion. Similar to that other one, this is just a direct overview. The signs are in there, but it's based on the size of the screen, also the size of the site, it is difficult to see. The reason for the sign along Old Wiederstein, though, it's very much the same now. Not that people are driving by down Old Wiederstein at 45 miles per hour, at least they shouldn't be. But again, at the intersection, whether you're stopped heading along 1103 or coming up the other side, it allows for people to actually be able to see that, make a decision, and be able to pull off. Go ahead. This final one, this is not for requesting something that somebody else has. What this is for is just discussion on really a reference point down the road there at Pick and Pack. They do have a sign there. I think it's a good looking sign. As you can see, based on the height, it looks to be about 22 to 25 feet tall. That's what I estimate. And again, what we're requesting along 1103 is 15. And with that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Council have any questions for David with this portion? Reminder, we will address this later on in the agenda. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any citizens that would like to speak on this item? No. Time is now 7 o'clock. To close the second public hearing. The third public hearing is the City of Cibolo City Council will conduct a public hearing to hear public testimony on the city contracting with the firm of Lineberger, Yegan, Blair, and Sampson LLP as special counsel to perform legal services necessary to collect unpaid fines, fees, and court costs as provided by Texas Code of Criminal Procedure Act. Ms. Simics.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This public hearing is required for us to be able to collect our fees and everything. You'll have an action item later on in the agenda. This was advertised in the newspaper as required, and we're required to have this public hearing so the public can give any input. So if you would like to open the public hearing, sir, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, Peggy. Time's now 7:01. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'd like to close the public hearing at the same time, 7:01. Moving on to the next item, we have the citizens to be heard. We have the first one, we have Mr. Dennis Fourier. Or, I'm sorry. So you help me with that, sir. Fournier. Come on up to the the podium here, Dennis. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Dennis Fournier, 209 B Alley in District 2. I just wanted to take the time to introduce myself. I've been attending meetings for the last 2 years online, but now with everything seeming to calm down and with my vaccination, I'm confident to come and be in here. And with that introduction, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for the awesome job that you're doing. And I intend on being a lot more involved. So I look forward to developing a relationship with each and every one of you. And that's all.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nicholas Parker. Nicholas Parker. Chris Perez. Todd West? I'm good, sir. Thank you. Okay, thank you. John Frias.
Good evening, everyone. Well, hopefully everyone had a good Christmas, New Year's. Last December City Council meeting, I want to retract one of my statements that I made when it came to the appointments of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner, appointee to the master plan. After further review that night, I spent time looking through agendas and minutes and videos, and I couldn't find anything for the year of 2021 for that. Clearly, time and time again, whenever I'm asked, can you serve? I'm always saying yes. There's never been a time that I said no, either through the military or in my capacity here with the city, helping and volunteering time, energy, and whatever I can give to the city. I have always said yes. So when I received an email saying, hey, you've been appointed, we need you here, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say yes, I'm willing to serve, and let me get to work. So I'm not sure if y'all got my email. Mr. Reed also did email me just to confirm my theory, and I'm glad that they were checking, behind the scenes as well, for the validation that, of what I came up with as well. So just want to get that record straight. Also too, like Mr. West said, I am opposed to the variance request for the landscape buffering. Personally, I don't believe if you're going to come here, build to what you can build to within the UDC as best you can. But something like this, Mark and I have a really good pulse on the public and our residents in our district. And, we definitely want to echo and represent them accordingly. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frias. Next, we have Elizabeth Gregory. Ms. Gregory, are you here?
I'm here to speak on the agenda on 10.
Okay, all right. Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Gregory, because it's not a public hearing, you'd have to speak on it, speak on that item now.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't recognize you all bundled up.
Well, first of all, I do want to thank y'all for your time and the work that you do for our community. It's really amazing, and I'm really happy with everybody. And I just want to reiterate my same stance on that 41 acres up that hill. I've been on top of that hill many times with my children when they were young. It belonged to my grandparents. And you could see the Taj Mahal, the planes at Randolph touching down and getting back up again. And we thought we could see the Gulf of Mexico from there. And it's really a high elevation. And what my main concern is these young people, young families with their children, their pets, their vehicles, their possessions being built downhill in Foxbrook. That second phase, that's really scary if you don't even have to be an engineer or a genius to see how this water is going to run, because there's a floodplain that intertwines with this property. My grandfather had a hell of a time keeping crops on that hill. He would terrace it. And, we have flash floods. It's just a fact. There's a lot of high density popping everywhere, and I get it. But I say, let's let the dust settle for a while. And there's a lot of dust. There's a lot of building. See how this water flow is going to go, the traffic flow, all the extra buses, because it is zoned in SF2. And 41 acres times SF2 is a lot of houses if that went through. But of course, Chesmar or some of these big shots, they're not going to spend time and money on that. They want an SF4, SF5, which is high density. And I think that if we could just hold off for a while on all this high density, especially how this floodplain runs, it's a fact. It's been platted many years ago. And spare these people from possible disaster when we do have a real hard overnight, one of those tropical systems. I really feel scary for them. So I think it would just be a wise choice not to let it go through at this time. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gregory. Next, we got Robbie Berg.
Hi, good evening. Can I say one thing before I go into my speech?
Absolutely.
I had an issue at my house where I had to, and I ended up trapping, I thought it was possums getting underneath my house, and I caught a skunk instead. And luckily, I called the city and animal control. Real nice gentleman, I think it was Charles Gibson, came out and took care of it for me. He's like, "Yay."
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for.
It was kind of cute. I didn't want anybody shooting it, and he didn't make it spray either, so that was good.
Thanks for the info.
But I'm on the 41 acres. I live on Dean Road as well. And I'm opposing this development. I hear a lot of times in the meetings where we talk about diversity. And in this area, if you look at it, it is just swallowed up by high density already in this area. And slowly, I don't blame the Cox for giving up. They have fought with us for years, since I would say 2010, against the 21 acres being developed. They're tired of fighting about it. You want to give up. The developers don't, so you still have to come down here and argue about it, or not argue, but have a discussion about it. And part of my land is which I've shown y'all, is below this property, and I own 7 acres. Pretty much 5 acres of that is in the flood zone. So if you build even more houses up there, how much more flooding is it going to cause on my area, let alone the people down the road? And I don't know how many of y'all lived here through the floods? Have you? Yeah. So you've seen it. And some of the others that are newer to this area, they haven't seen it or been witness to that devastation. So that's my other concern. And I remember at one time, I believe also on the 21 acres that belong to the Wrights, there used to be a pond up there. Are they just going to fill that in? Because that was like a retention, wasn't there a retention pond up there? So that retained some of the water. I don't know how good it is up there now, but I really wish there was a way that we could work with the developers. I wish I could just buy the property. I don't have that much money in my pocket, but thank you so much, and I do appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Mrs. Berg. Moving on to item 7, we have the consent agenda. We have 2 items. We can approve them with one motion or take them piece by piece. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve item 7 as written.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I should have addressed this at the beginning of the meeting, but we do have a very light staff tonight. So we are going on I'm sure it isn't going to cause any hard feelings. We're going to shorten up our agenda a little bit. But we have a staff update. Ms. Simmons, and Chief Huggins. Did you have anything, Chief?
No, sir, I'll be speaking a little bit later on in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Make sure that everyone knows, including the public, that we have a grand opening for our senior center on the 31st of January. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have fire station number 3 opening, and everyone is invited to that grand opening also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simics.
Mayor, could I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if y'all are aware or not, but this is Mr. Tracy Beekman. He's our new IT director, so it'd be nice to introduce him.
Name again, I'm sorry?
Tracy Beekman.
Tracy. Yes, sir. Yep. Thank you. We're very excited to have you on board, and welcome to the team, and we look forward to a long, bright future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Mrs. Berg? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I can't hear you, ma'am. I'm sorry, okay, so the senior center is going to be at Grange Hall, Peggy, right?
Grange Hall, Main Street and
Yeah.
Slaughter.
Slaughter at 9 o'clock. So hope to see you guys all there. It's to give a little bit of background, that's been a lot of hard work by our Parks and Rec and several of our staff members, council, and putting that together. So we finally have our own senior program. So, hopefully we can attend. You don't have to be a senior to come out and participate, but let's come out and show our support and all that. So it really truly is going to be a big day in Cibolo, Texas. So thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Berg, for asking. Okay, so that closes out the staff updates. And Peggy, I'm assuming you're up there for the next one. It'll be the discussion action items on the Lineberger items. So I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. This item is going to be in 3 phases. We need, and the
sir.
reason why I broke that down into A,
Thank
B,
you,
and
Ms.
C
Riggs.
for everyone is because it's an action item, and we'll have to have an action item in an approval on each of those 3 areas. The first one would be on the the contract, which is a requirement that states that the city actually needs this service, basically. The next one would be the resolution, and the last one would be actually the contract for the fines and fees for the collection services. So we would need an action, a vote on each of those items. I do have representatives from the Lineberger law firm here. This item has been passed by our attorney, Mr. Garza, and he's already looked at all the items. But if anyone has any questions, either myself or one of the legal people can answer those for you.
Thank you for putting this together, Ms. Simics. I know as we grow, these are one of the natural steps that our community takes, and thank you for.
Well, it's long overdue because we really haven't collected our warrants for quite some time. The police department is growing, and we have so many more citizens, they can't really afford to have one of their police officers constantly just over there collecting or making phone calls, trying to collect these overdue warrants. So that's the purpose of this. And many of our surrounding cities do this already. So we're one of the last ones probably to get on board with this type of program.
Yes, ma'am. Is there any discussion by council, or can I get?
I'll make a motion to, I guess, go ahead and approve the written statement and finding of the need for specialized contingent fee legal services under Texas Government Code 2254.
A second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilman Cunningham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item.
I'll go ahead and make a motion on a resolution authorizing the city of Siblo to enter into a collection contract for fines, fees, restitution, other debts, and costs, providing split fees on partial collections by authorizing a collections fee in the amount of 30% to defray cost of collecting delinquent fees, fines, fees, court costs, and other debts over 60 days past due pursuant to Article 103.0031 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilwoman Cunningham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And lastly, I'll make a motion to approve of an agreement with Lineberger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson LLP and the city of Cibolo for the collection of delinquent court fines and fees.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All three carry. Thank you so much, Ms. Simics.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Lineberger. Welcome to the team. 9B, discussion action regarding a variance request to sign ordinance 1188 on premises signs to increase height, total square footage to proposed monument sign locations of 2979 FM 1103. This sounds real familiar, Ms. Gonzalez. So
Yes, sir.
is there any more you'd like to add to the presentation or any information you'd like to add?
The only additional thing was per the comprehensive sign program regulations on the ordinance is the reason for these kind of, it's not so much a variance, but these allowances that we encourage a sign program is generally with developments that have multiple uses or multiple access points and to provide good visual environment or promote traffic safety and minimize sign clutter. In our report, we did identify allowances per the code that is allowed if they were not to go through this program. And then what we've identified as well as the individual's request for each sign. And the primary reason for the allowance from P&Z that was discussed on December 8th was primarily due to safety and proximity to the intersection and the elevation differences with the property to the road.
Well, this is a great example. Thank you for bringing that up. This is a great example of these processes and procedures put to work so that we can, instead of just a blanket approving all, developments, that we can take a look at each individual. And I'm pretty excited about the location. I'm excited about the development. And, it's I'd like to open it up to council for any discussion. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I like, most of what's being proposed. The only thing that I have a little bit of an issue with is the 15.5 feet sign. So I think that's a little bit, it's more than double, what our allowable height is on a sign basis. And so has there been any consideration to potentially reducing the size there, potentially 8 to 10 feet, maybe kind of meet them in the middle, and look at it where we could have the pricing at the top of the sign and then have the QT logo underneath the pricing? Because I think that what they're mainly trying to convey is the price, to bring potential customers in. And so one thing that, potential businesses may not know about this market is that we are, a really loyal customer base. And I think that, the people that live here in Cibolo, once they find something they like, they'll go back over and over again. So even if you had no sign, I think that this QT would do fantastic business at this location. And so I'm fine with most of it, but I do have reservations about that 15.5 foot monument sign. So if we could potentially discuss that with the developer and see if there's something we can do to maybe meet in the middle there.
I would challenge that because there's a sign right down the street that's 25 feet high. So already on 1103. So, and it's for safety purposes, right? So when you look at it, when you go down that road, you've been down it, it dips down a hill. So you're not going to see it. And so and one thing that brings customers to places is seeing the sign, right? So if they don't see it as they're coming off the highway or whatever the case might be, they pass it up, they're just going to go to the next place. So I think we may owe it to this company to at least advertise their product so that it can be seen and everything. And I don't think 15 foot, based on where it sits at the bottom of the hill, is going to be an eyesore. It's going to obstruct in any way as we go a mile down the road and you see one that's 25 feet in the air.
Councilman Benson?
Yeah, I appreciate, Lisa, you providing some history on this. I sat on planning and zoning for several years where Mr. Dale was trying to put this thing together, and I'm not a huge fan of variances of any kind. But having said that, the reason that we put together a sign program, and he did a great job on it wherever he's at, Round Rock or wherever, probably doing the same thing there for them. He did a great job, but the idea is that not every sign was going to fit in every location. And so we allowed for these things because, you know, you're sitting at the bottom of a hill that coming northbound drops off 56 feet. That sign became very, very small at the bottom of the hill. And I think we have to have some flexibility so that we do have businesses that can advertise who they are and where you turn into their store, so that people like me don't at the last minute see it and then careen off the road to get into the gas. No, I don't drive like that. I'm just saying. So I think that the history of this is important. I think that we've got a good quality looking sign. And I think that if we look at things in an overall total package, the square feet we're talking about is minimal. And I think for me, it makes sense. And it's exactly what the sign program was designed to do, is to provide some flexibility and still have good looking signs. So I appreciate it.
Councilwoman Cunningham?
So I'm with TG, where I'm kind of automatically, when I see a variance, I cringe, because we have rules for a reason. We want to follow them. We want to stick with that. But the presentation was very clear. Thank you for providing those pictures, and even the Google image, and as small as that was helpful to see how it will look on the road and how it's set back. So it's not like this big bright neon red sign out there causing a distraction or shining into backyards or anything like that. I was originally opposed to the 15 feet just because it is double what we have for that sign. But looking at the elevations, it does make sense to have a taller sign in that area, and the square footage isn't that much bigger. My question is the 3 signs. I understand the turn-in sign because that is a very distant turn-in from where the gas station is. And I understand the tall sign. I noticed that the QT on 3009 only has 1 large sign. They don't have an additional small sign, even though they're also on a corner. So I was wondering why this location would have 2 pricing signs. The Pick and Pack, which is also on a corner location, only has 1 large sign, not 2.
And then also the sign on 3009, how tall is that sign, to give us some perspective? Do you know?
It looks about 15.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I'm
not
thinking.
As tall as Pick and
No,
Pack.
that's what I'm thinking, is about 15 foot.
I will admit that was not my project. I don't have the exact details on the height of that sign on 3009. You know, each site that we look at is unique in its characteristics. The streets that they're on, what type of streets those are, like I said, whether it's at an intersection or not, what type of intersection that is, what type of roads you have. In each case, I would say it's not uncommon and very expected that vehicles on each street would be able to have a sign that they can see and make those decisions. I wish I knew more a little bit about that other one on 3009. I'd be making something up, I think, if I tried to come up with something. And I don't want to do that. In this case, though, it is along. These are standard roads that are going to be traveled. I know that Old Wiederstein has homes and businesses along it there as well. So that is not obviously as heavily traveled as 1103, but traveled enough that would still be appropriate to allow people to see that. Although I didn't show, we know that also has a hill, right? As you're coming towards the intersection from the side that Quick Trip would be on, that does also have a hill. And really, like you've indicated, I think in each of these situations that what we're asking for, we don't feel is some egregious sign. To be perfectly frank, as I talked about before, a 35-foot sign would have been something probably on a road like 1103. The way they're designed, as with Quick Trip or with really any gas station, having the logo to show that this is what is located here, followed by just the pertinent information for those drivers, is what we need to have or would want to have on those signs so that they can make that decision. And I do feel that 15 feet was a give or a basically working to come up with something that was feasible for that site, but also not more than we needed, more than, like I said, a 35-foot sign. That wasn't what we wanted to come here with and say, hey, this is what we need. So we think that that was coming down to something that could work for the situation for that location.
And just for reference, how tall are the canopies, do you know, for the?
Canopies are typically 20 to 22 feet tall.
So it would be shorter than.
Well, we have a business right down the street here, HEB, that's coming in, and when we discussed their signage, because of the corridor to our downtown, putting some of our city logos on them. And I think that this begs the discussion of, since you are literally right on our city limit line, you fall over on the Siblo side, would you guys be amenable to adding some welcome to Cibolo, buffaloes, or any of those type on the bottom where the black is, the Lucabon, or the material that you use down on the below it, or even locating, another sign that would indicate that, that you're in Cibolo?
I don't see that as an unreasonable request. I think it is something that in situations, there have been a few situations that there has been a welcome to or something similar. I absolutely have no problem discussing that with staff and with the city about working out some details on that.
Well, really, we like to convey with our businesses that it is a give and take, and it would go a long way with our citizens, I think, to take ownership of your store or our side, even though we have a great relationship with our neighbors. But I think it would go really a long way, Mr. Wanders.
I think that is a good idea. Like we said, we want to bring this to Cibolo. It is a Cibolo store. And we do hope that the citizens would see that as their store that they go to or pass by and are proud of it. And I certainly see a sign, whatever we can work together to come up with, I can see that as being appropriate. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve 9B as written.
Second.
Motion's been made, and second, we're going to do a roll call. We'll start with you, Councilman Quinn.
Aye.
Next, Bone.
Nay.
Ms. Cunningham?
Aye.
Hey.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have item D, discussion direction to staff to modify, I'm sorry, no, not D. Item C, discussion action on removal appointments and reappointments of Planning and Zoning Commission. This is the item that Mr. Frias brought up earlier. And Peggy, did you want to add a little bit of background on that? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I did place the email that Mr. Reed received from Mr. Frias in your packet. And this item is just for that item only. We will have appointments to committees and commissions on the February agenda. It was needed to be on this agenda so that the P&Z could take action to appoint a representative tomorrow evening without you taking action to retract this item. They could not take action tomorrow and have that person at the February meeting. So that's the purpose of it being on the agenda.
So this is specifically for the appointment to the master plan committee, right? So Councilman.
So both the email and the statements tonight referenced an email that stated he was selected as the representative for that committee. Does that email exist? An email that was sent to him saying you were selected by Planning and Zoning as a representative?
He was called to be at the meeting as the representative, and I don't know how that totally came about or whatever, but we called everybody for every meeting. We get so many applications. I think we assumed that it was the Planning and Zoning Commission appointment. but.
But the email did say it was as the planning and zoning and not
I
just
can't
as a,
say- I think he was personally called
No, I have an email from you.
from,
Joe's with me and the EDC director.
so I don't have the email.
Okay.
So
it to you? Kate,
excuse me?
from,
me to forward it to you?
Sure, if you want to.
I think he's talking about the one from Mrs. Latimer. Are you not?
No, this is the one from you. It was actually the date before.
Okay, so if he has it, that's fine.
Okay.
But we get so many, sometimes when we get those applications, we're assuming that they're from the planning and zoning and without checking. So that would have been, could have been an error on our part also.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Allen?
Okay, so I guess my question is, where do we go from here? And I'm assuming that, tomorrow night that P and Z will meet and then they'll take a vote. And then we'll go with their appointment at the next meeting, since we do our appointments in even numbered months, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir. They could not make another appointment unless this one is retracted.
Okay.
So
And so
we have
that's
to
the
remove
reason
them.
why it's on the agenda tonight, so that it's on their agenda also, hoping that you would take your action tonight.
Okay.
So then they can appoint someone tomorrow evening. It could be Mr. Frias, it could be anyone on that. I have no idea who they're going to represent. And then that person will come back with a lot of other people that you've already interviewed
In
for
February.
the master plan committee.
So we need to remove them tonight then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then I'll make them, unless there's any other questions, I'll make a motion to retract the appointment of John David Frias as a representative of the P and Z for the master plan.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilman Benson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now on to item 10, or 90, discussion action of staff to modify the UDC Article 13.3 to allow convenience storage by conditional use permit within the community retail service, C2 zoning. Ms. Gonzalez.
Just gonna get a chair over here. Okay, for this agenda item, I believe everyone's pretty familiar with the basis of this request. Tonight, staff is requesting direction on whether or not to initiate the process to amend the UDC. The city received a request for a specific use allowed within our current non-residential zoning district. The request would require an upzone from the C2 or the C1 to a C3. To allow that specific use, the applicants are requesting to maintain the current zoning if they can request a conditional use permit instead. The applicant is seeking the modification to Article 13.3 use chart. This would allow for an applicant to request a conditional use permit for a convenient storage within the C2 zoning district without rezoning the property to C3. If directed tonight, staff will initiate the public notification process with public hearings and a final action by City Council by February 22nd. When you look at the UDC, this article, the tables, it would be under the convenient storage section or use, and under C2 instead of being blank, which right now it's blank, means that it is not permitted in that zoning district. It would be changed to C and an S, which stands for conditional use permit and supplemental standards per our Article 6. Does City Council have any questions for staff?
Yes, ma'am.
Clarification? Yes, ma'am.
So would this be a full, like you would update the actual UDC to reflect this for this one person who's requesting a variance?
Correct. At the P&Z and City Council meetings, there was a lot of discussion on allowing this specific use in that current zoning. However, with the UDC as is, we are not able to. And in the past, we've been able to amend the UDC based on a request from an applicant, staff, and/or P&Z council.
Okay, so this would not like put us into a full UDC review. It would just be
Correct.
unilateral. And would there be any UDC committee involvement
No, ma'am.
in it? Okay.
And just from my refresh, this is for that one applicant that was wanting to do, well, it would be for future applicants as well, but In particular, when he was here, we had asked about doing the UDC change because he's wanting to do the storages, and we were concerned about upgrading to a C3 and him doing some other crazy stuff. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, yeah,
The
I
night
just
of
want to make sure.
the night of the UDC modification ordinance comes to before this, before council, I will also bring that ordinance from that applicant to the
Okay.
same meeting.
Yeah, I remember now.
This was just to, because we didn't want to have to go through and rezone it to C3. Because we knew that if something were to happen to that applicant, for whatever reason, we change it to C3, then anything C3 could go in there.
Yep.
But by us changing our UDC to allow, I know that we talked about a SUP, but since, it's a special use permit, and instead of going that route, it would have taken a long time to do that, where to add a SUP, because we don't have a SUP currently in our UDC. It's easier to just, because we were explained by Mr. Garza that a SUP and a CUP are basically the same thing. Conditional use permit, special use permit, basically you're doing the same thing. So that's why we're going this route.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, because I remember the conversation clearly now, so this is the way we wanted to go.
Okay, we got some head nods. I think that's a direction that,
Initiate the process?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Next, while you're there, we have discussion action regarding the land study for Long Branch residential subdivision.
Next page. Thank you very much. This is for the Long Branch residential subdivision. It is a new subdivision south of 78. It is for approximately 11 acres. Council District 7, they are currently zoned SF5, and they are proposing 166 residential lots with 65-foot minimum lot widths and average square foot of 7,800 square feet. Sewer is the city of Siblo with water GVSUD. In your packet, you'll have the land study, utility plans, parks plan, project engineer letter, everything that was submitted to staff. With the land study, it is an introductory plan of a proposed subdivision. This is the part that comes before plating. Per our UDC, we require an applicant with a larger size of land to pretty much figure out the engineering of the land prior to plating. So in the report, we break it down as far as the streets, utilities, parks, and drainage, and how they're being addressed with this development. So in regards to streets, the future thoroughfare plan, the developer will provide right-of-way along FM 78, and this is requirements per TxDOT, and then as well as the city's future thoroughfare plan, or the FTP. The developer will dedicate approximately 150 feet worth of right-of-way that bisects the property, and this is for the future extension of FM 1103. In regards to utilities, the development of water service will be provided by GVSUD. Sewer service will be provided by City of Cibolo. However, the developer will be providing connection to sewer service via the Venado Crossing lift station located east of the project site, which is approximately 5,400 linear feet worth of pipe. In regards to drainage, the entirety of the property will be conveyed through streets, storm drains to a detention pond in the south corner of the site, where it will be discharged ultimately into Town Creek. This last section of a land study is discussing parkland. Per our ordinances, we have parkland dedication and park improvements. For the parkland dedication, we have two options for a developer. You can do parkland dedication, or you can do a fee in lieu of. That fee in lieu of is $600 per residential lot. The developer on this property is proposing parkland dedication of 5.2 acres, and this is totaling 10% of the overall development. Per our code, you are required or requested to provide 8% of that 8%. There's only 60% of that can be allowed to be in the floodplain. And instead of going into the details of that, which they are not going over that amount, they are requesting to dedicate Parkland in this development, and it should be in your packet identifying the areas that they are proposing. And what staff is asking is that if council would give direction to the applicant tonight on whether or not council wants to accept this Parkland dedication or prefer the $600 per lot. And if we were to go to $600 per lot or in fee in lieu of, you would be looking at approximately at $100,000 of parkland fees that would go towards land acquisition for parks later down the road. I did speak with our City Parks Division representative, Mr. Kelly Craighead, on this subject, and I asked for a recommendation from his department, and he recommended to accept the fee as the trail master plan doesn't connect to this area, and it is technically a secluded development. And that was his recommendation on the parkland. In regards to the entirety of the project, city engineer, staff, and the P&Z recommended approval. We are just requesting city council's direction as far as the parkland dedication.
Councilman Hicks, question?
First thing that brings arise to me is the fact that it's got one entrance in and out. 166 homes and we've only got one entrance in and out.
They have an entrance directly to FM 78, and then they will also be providing secondary access points connecting to 1103 extension and a street stub to the southern properties. And there will also be a 26-foot wide emergency access road to FM 78 within a private ingress egress easement along the northwestern property line. And that was required by not just the UDC, but also fire. So along the subdivision to the east, that's where that 26-foot ingress egress will be for emergency access until future development happens to
Okay,
the south.
because, well, with that, I know that because of fire and because what if we had a major accident right there in front of it and we don't have no access to it because we're waiting for future development over here? I have a hard time accepting this. That, and we already have issues with D.R. Horton in Still Creek with back of homes flooding, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lots here that show that they're in the floodplain at the very bottom. And to be honest, I'd rather take the money in lieu of taking parks because we're not, what the city's gonna get out of this, these little bitty strips of park, take our guys to go out there and mow it if we were to dedicate it to us. I'd rather have the money to go towards our trail system. But I've got concerns with the egress and egress and then the flooding of those 4 properties there, because we already have problems. I hear it all the time. I am District 7, this is District 7. Hear it all the time from my constituents in Still Creek that they cannot get the water drained out of their back of their yard, and D.R. Horton's not doing anything about it. So I've got some concerns here with this whole thing.
Ms. Gonzalez, when is the FM 1103 going to go through that neighborhood? Oh.
That's above my pay grade.
It's
To
not
know
on
the
the
answer
plan,
to
it's
that
not
one.
on the plans? Oh. Yeah,
My responsibility
I'm
is
with
to
Mr. Hicks on this.
right away.
We talk about 2 entrances and exits, and man, it would be horrible right there. You've got people's property in between and 78, and this whole thing is
It's a mess.
odd to me, very, very odd. And there's not much of this I like at all.
I'm with both of you. I agree.
Same.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
I'll make a motion to disapprove the land study for Long Branch residential subdivision.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. We'll start with the roll call. Colonel Hetzel.
Aye.
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 Motion carries to disapprove the land study. Item F, discussion action on preliminary acceptance of the public infrastructure for Bella Rosa subdivision.
Okay, this one is preliminary acceptance of public infrastructure for the new Bella Rosa subdivision that's on Cove Lane. This is for their first phase. It's YM Siblo by Mike Yantis, and it's CEC Consultants with D&D site work. It's approximately 11.7 acres, 41 residential lots with 1 private park, 6 greenbelt lots, and 2 drainage lots, Council District 5, and in your packet, you should have a recorded Mylar. The public improvements located within and dedicated to the city is water for a total valuation of $218,710.56. It's a 2,957 linear feet of water. Sewer, 2,283 linear feet for a total valuation of $184,073.55. For drainage, the valuation is $222,980.08. And public streets, they are dedicating 2,600 linear feet with a total valuation of $566,464.49. With a total valuation dedicated to the city of Cibolo is $1,192,228.68. The city engineer recommends approval of the applicant's request for preliminary acceptance on the first phase of Bella Rosa subdivision.
Councilman Hicks.
Okay. I know this is a preliminary acceptance. I just want to make sure that the contractor and Mr. Yantis understand that they hadn't even started building in there. I've driven it. It's nice in there. But once you start having these heavy trucks, concrete trucks, delivering goods to build it, we're going to make sure that we're not going to get left hanging. We do have a bond on this, correct? Okay, thank you.
Councilman Allen.
Is this the developer that's going to be working on fixing the road on Old Green Valley from Town Creek to this Bella Rose subdivision? Is that their responsibility?
Here tonight.
You know what part of the road I'm talking about, Ms. Gonzalez? It's really
Yes, sir.
torn up right now.
So the home builder, which is Century, has committed to fixing, I think you're referring to Cove Lane in Town Creek. That's messed up, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, Cove Lane is basically a dirt road that goes from the old property that was purchased to build these additional houses. And the plan is for Cove Lane to punch through to Sibila Valley Drive. And
Okay.
from what I understand is the developer from the charter school is going to put forth some funding towards that. What I'm referring to is the section of road, it's called Old Green Valley now. At least that's what it says on the road sign.
Okay, yes, that section, Century, which is a home builder for Bella Rosa Unit 1, has committed to repairing that road.
Okay. And is there a timeline for that?
I don't have one, but I can look into that. Yes, that is what Century has committed to fixing and repairing.
Okay. And so part of the,
I mean, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really bad.
definitely.
I don't see how you're going to sell any homes if it looks the way it does.
Yes.
Yeah. And so part of the final acceptance will be us taking a look at that and making sure that that road is nice.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other input on this item?
Make a motion to approve
Do we have a second?
Second.
GF as written, or 9F as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. We'll do a roll call, starting with you, Councilman Quinn.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Discussion action authorize the city manager to execute task order 2202 with LAN to provide professional engineering services for design and phase of Tolly Road wastewater improvements project. Is that you, Ms. Gonzalez?
Ish.
Huh? Stay put.
It's not really, but do you have any questions on the item?
Okay. No, council, do you have any questions? I know this has been a hot topic and long discussed.
No, I'm ready for this to go, so I'll make a motion to approve or authorize city manager to execute task order 2202 with Lockwood Andrews Newman, Inc. to provide professional engineering services through design and construction phase of Tolly Road wastewater improvement project.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilman Hicks, second by Councilman Quinn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. We'll see you soon. Next, we have Mr. Morris, presentation, discussion, action, staff involving the amendment of Cibolo Economic Development Corporation's bylaws. How are you doing, Mr. Morris?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing tonight? So this item is coming back to you all just for some brief history. On October 21st of last year, the EDC Board of Directors was presented with the revised version of the bylaws. Just per the comments made by the EDC attorney, after some discussion from the board, the revised bylaws were approved pending City Council's approval. This was brought before City Council on December 14th. There was a motion to have the bylaws conversation tabled until this meeting, just to give council some additional time to review the changes that were suggested, and then, of course, provide any comments to staff to then give back to the EDC attorney to then, of course, revise and bring back for approval at a later date. So essentially, this item is just for discussion and to give staff any input on any kind of changes that they would like to see the bylaws have. One of the main ones was just concerning items such as term limits, which was in a new document that City Council had passed. So at this time, staff just wants any other items of concern to be mentioned.
I'm going to defer to Councilman Quinn. This is
I mean,
ball of wax.
These bylaws are by far leap years ahead of what was written before. And obviously the bylaws that were written before were 12, 13 years old. But I still do have a concern about the term limits in the bylaws, right? Because I know when we wrote our policy for 3-year terms for members of boards and everything along that lines. So I don't know how that's going to tie in, because we wanted our board members to be on the same timeline as our council members because we appoint them. So that's my only concern that's in the bylaws that I saw, is it still shows 2 years. And I think it should state 3 years based off of our policy that we wrote for committees and boards and everything along that lines.
Do you want to put that in form of a motion, Councilman Quinn?
I think it's just a discussion here.
I'm sorry. That's right.
Yeah, it's just a discussion. So I just think that would be the only thing. It's still my concern.
Yes, sir.
Looks like it's a dead mic, but nevertheless, I'm allowed. I understand that we're getting ready. Okay, thank you, ma'am. You can throw that for me. I believe that we're getting ready for a new EDC chief or something like that fairly soon. I think that's under development or whatnot.
Well, a new economic development director.
Okay. Be that as it may, what I would suggest is that we let the new EDC chief, director, whatever, take a look at this. Because this is something that they're going to be living with for a while. Now,
Actually, the two separates, right? So
well, yours is a good point there about the length of terms and whatnot. What I'm suggesting is that the individual that actually has to manage the program, take a look at it, because based on their experience in other locations, they get involved, and that's all.
Well, we've had this, Mr. Hetzel, we've had this discussion because the economic development director works with and sometimes is hired by the Economic Development Corporation. They're two different entities. That's why we had to make sure. That's where there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of strife in the city, is because there was no anything to differentiate between the economic development director or the economic development department in the city and the EDC. Everybody kept calling the EDC, and he's not the EDC. He doesn't want to work for the EDC. He works for him as a contract, but he doesn't want to
Report to them.
report to him and be paid for by them. So we made sure that there was a direct cut. Okay, EDC, and that's why we've had all this stuff. And I understand what you're saying is getting the economic development director to read it and look over it and see what he thinks about it. But as far as the bylaws, that's our Economic Development Corporation. Those are the individuals we, as council, have appointed to that position.
There's a true delineation, Mr. Hetzel. So there's a delineation of the two. So you got the corporation and the EDC department. And so I'm sure you remember about a year and a half ago, we went through all this rimraff and we finally separated the two. And so there's a true clear delineation, whereas Mr. Morris, the new director that comes on, will work for the city. And then we have our corporation that works for the council. And then they do things in conjunction with each other in order to help with economic development throughout the city. And they have two clear different objectives in some aspects. And then in some aspects, they share some of the same objectives. Right? Okay.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Garza, you had something to add?
The only thing I was going to add is that the bylaws are the structure for the EDC board to follow.
Yes.
And the position that's being placed is a city position that's going to work as a liaison to the board for economic development purposes. So the board has been working very closely with Dustin and their general counsel, because they have their own separate counsel, to update these bylaws. And it's really going to be up to the new city's economic development director to comply with these bylaws. Yep. They'll look at them annually, and if the new director believes there's a change that needs to be proposed, he'll go to the board will review and so forth. But again, I don't think the revision of the bylaws should wait for the city's new economic development director either.
I agree.
Councilman Allen?
Maybe I missed this, but was it you, Mr. Quinn, who brought up the 2-year terms of office as opposed to 3?
It should be 3 years.
Correct. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Cunningham?
I just want to say thank you. The language and the writing of the wording is very clear and concise. Doesn't have a lot of frivolous legalese in there. It makes it very easy to follow and understand, so I appreciate that.
I mean, yeah, if we can just get the term changed, I think we'll be good.
I got a question on number 4, Mr. Garza. Page 3. The board may contract with the city or with another entity. They still need to bring that before the council, do they not? Okay. Yes, okay.
Okay. There's nothing else. Thank you very much, Mr. Morris.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Next, item I, we are going to postpone to our next regular scheduled council meeting. Item J, we have discussion regarding our SWOT, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis for the council strategic workshop. Turn it over to Chief Huggins.
Thank you, sir. So as we all know, Mr. Reed is not here this evening. So he asked me to come and talk to y'all about the SWOT analysis.
Oh, when he said SWAT,
This is not special weapons and tactics. No special weapons and tactics. It'll be more fun. I'll give you that.
Okay, try to stay with us, Chief.
I'll try to make this as fun as I can. It just won't be the same.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some of y'all have probably done a SWOT analysis in the past. For those who haven't, I'll tell you what it is real quick. It's a technique used for strategic planning and analysis, and it helps you assess your current environment. It's used a lot in project planning. It helps specify the objectives of a new venture or a new project. And it identifies internal and external factors that are favorable or unfavorable to achieve the objectives. Why would we use something like that? To explore new solutions to problems, identify barriers that limit goals and objectives, help decide on a direction that could be most effective, reveal possibilities and limitations for change, revise plans to best navigate systems and organizations, and it helps act as a brainstorming device. So Mr. Reed asked that y'all think through the SWOT analysis and write down your thoughts. He sent you a copy of this in your email. I don't know if you had the opportunity to look at it today or not, but he did send it to you this afternoon. He asked that you please send your SWOT analysis back to him and Nicole by Monday so that y'all can use it to work through your upcoming strategic planning workshop. I think that was on January 25th. So he wants you to feel, assess your current environment, both internally and externally, and plan for the future. So the strengths and weaknesses are internal, or they look inside the organization and are in essence looking backwards at what we've done up to this point. And the opportunities and threats are external, or look at the outside environment or outside factors, and are looking forward to the future and what we're going to do. And again, I don't know if you have the SWOT analysis in front of you right now, but the first one is strengths. And it's the characteristics of an organization or community which give the advantages over its competitors. So what he wanted to kind of start rolling, get the ball rolling with, is for us to consider the strengths from an internal and constituent perspective. So maybe the first question on our strengths would be, what advantages does our organization have? And some of the things that we talked about today were, residents are proud to call Cibolo home. They've established families here. We have established families here that have been here for generations. We have a low tax rate compared to surrounding cities. We have a strong credit rating, AA. We have fully funded fund reserves. We have a well-trained police and fire department and dedicated staff. And we have a rail line that runs right through the middle of our city. What are some unique resources that Siblo has that other cities do not, or a few that do? And frankly, we have a lot of undeveloped areas that we're able to grow in. We have a historic downtown with thriving businesses. Another question he had is, what is Cibolo's unique selling proposition and who are our customers? This is what Siblo offers to our customers that they value. And residents, businesses, other surrounding cities, Guadalupe County, ACOG, and many other organizations, look to Siblo for what we contribute. We have a strong sense of belonging in the city of Siblo. I mean, that's evident at every city council meeting we go to, every function that we have. We have military proud and a large population of veterans in this city. And we have safe and thriving community and strong school district, family-friendly special events, and we have an historic downtown again that brings people to the heart of our city. What positive resident and business perception does our organization have? We have a staff that cares about this community. We have a community that loves downtown. We have citizens that appreciate public service and that support our essential workers, especially police, fire, and public works. And the last question he had on the strengths is, what low-cost resources does Cibolo have access to that others do not or few do? And we have water for our current residents at a rate that's lower than a lot of other municipalities are in the area. So he asked me to ask you, what are some of the strengths internally that you see for the city of Cibolo that y'all would like to put on this list? If y'all want to talk about it tonight, that's fine. If you just want to wait and write it down on your own SWOT analysis and send it in, that's fine too. But we just wanted to give you the opportunity to think about what are our strengths and what are we bringing to the table? What have we brought to the table up to this point? So the next part of the SWOT is weaknesses. So again, this is internal. This is looking back at what we've done up to this point. And this is characteristics of an organization or a community which puts it at a disadvantage relative to its competitors. And so what does our organization not do well? And we're specifically talking about the organization as a whole, not individuals. I want to make that clear. So what we've not done well up to this point is performance management. We really haven't worked as an organization to look at the job performances of the organization as a whole and try to measure that so we can try to fix it and make it as best the best that we can. Instilling a continuous improvement within the organizations, within the different departments. Employee development. We have a lot of good, dedicated employees. That's a strength. We just haven't spent as much time and effort as we can to develop them to be the best they can be. That's something we need to work on. Employee recognition. It's inconsistent. It's from department to department. That's something that we want to instill as a value and something that we want to do across the board. Inconsistent promotion of community. No annual plan of what we will be doing. Not resourced adequately to promote Siblo on social media and other outlets. Again, we talked about this in the strengths of having a railway run through the middle of our city, but it's also a weakness. If something happens on that railway, it's right through the middle of town, and that can cause some serious problems for us. We're not properly resourced for emergency management. We work on emergency management, but we just don't have the resources other cities do to really deal with what we have on the emergency management side. We have 2 interstates very close proximity to us, a railway and flight path that goes right through the middle of our city as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for catastrophic events. We lack the facilities management staffing for all of our facilities. We're understaffed in several service areas. And we're not market competitive in compensation to attract and retain top talent. We did bring police and fire up to market this past year, and I know we're doing a market analysis for this upcoming year, but that's one of the reasons we're doing this. We can make sure that we bring everybody where they need to be. And what weaknesses do residents and businesses see in our organization? A lack of a major thoroughfare between FM 78 and 11 and I-10. Now we have some small arterial roads, but there's nothing that is a major thoroughfare that goes between the 2 of them. Inconsistent service delivery in the permit process. That's something that we've heard through the years that we need to try to correct. Delivery of CIP projects takes longer than originally planned or expected. And we've heard that from y'all. Once or twice. I'm looking at you, Mr. Hicks. Poor maintenance of existing transportation infrastructure. We all know that just driving through the city, right? So what factors contribute to a weaker brand image? Going back to the roadways, the appearance of the roadways, they're in poor condition. That's what people see when they drive into Cibolo. Flooding issues. We've been dealing with that for decades. Frankly, the perception as the little sibling of shirts. That's something that we need to overcome. We're the largest city in Guadalupe County now, and we need to make sure that we look to the future and start acting like that. And lack of executive housing. So the next question is what can harm Siblo if we don't get it right? If it does not catch up on street maintenance, it will become financially incapable of creating and sustaining a good street network. So I know streets is something that we've all been interested in trying to get corrected, but that is one of our internal weaknesses. That's where we're at right now, right? This is looking back and where we're at to this point. Now we look at the external factors, and that's opportunities and threats. So the opportunities, that's a positive side. What are the elements in the organization's external environment that allows it to formulate and implement strategies to achieve its goals? So some questions there are to consider opportunities from an external perspective. What good opportunities are available for Siblo to grow and prosper? A strategic location along the I-35 corridor and the Golden Triangle of Texas. We lie right in the middle of one of the fastest growing, best economic development areas in the whole United States. And we need to take advantage of that. We got to look to the future and plan for that. I-10 corridor for manufacturing, other primary job employers. We got AW Texas down there. That should be the building block and just continue to build on that. Development areas within our city for retail, manufacturing, and industrial to the level of quality we desire. We should make Cibolo a destination. We should make this the area in the northeast San Antonio area that people, what are some trends that the city of Cibolo can capitalize on? Remote work, that's something that's popped up over the last couple of years due to COVID a lot. But what we've seen across the country is that the remote work is growing quickly. And a lot of people are realizing they don't need that office space. They can work out of their own home. Companies looking at secondary markets and locations for new corporate headquarters and other facilities. We have a great opportunity lying right on I-10, right next to I-35, between Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. That would be an awesome place. This is an awesome place for people to put down their roots in their headquarters and be able to reach all three of those major metropolitan areas. And create a connected transportation network as the city continues to grow. So a couple other questions. Are there any changes in technology or markets that our organization can take advantage of? And are there any changes in lifestyle, social patterns, et cetera, that our organization and community can take advantage of? And again, telework, remote working, maybe that's something we can build on. But there again, these are questions that he wants to kind of lay that groundwork for y'all. And if y'all have other questions or other ideas that you think would fit in this SWOT analysis, then please write them down and give them to him. The last one is threats. And there again, this is an external threat. This is looking forward. What are elements in the external environment that could endanger the integrity and financial strength of the organization? So what obstacles does our organization face on the outside? We have an increasing growth rate. We're growing really fast, and it's hard to keep up with that as a municipality. Acquisition of raw water rights to keep pace with growth and regulations at an affordable cost. We can get the water, just can't keep it affordable sometimes if we go into some of these agreements. So inability to be service providers of water and wastewater throughout our ETJ and city limits. Dependency on other agencies outside the city to provide services within our city, such as Green Valley South. Update to development regulations to respond to changing environment and forms of development. Other cities attracting businesses that could locate here to Siblo. And we're trying to get business just like everybody else. And then inconsistent broadband service depending on where you live inside the city of Siblo. What are the city's competitors doing better than we are? Frankly, branding. They're branding themselves better than Siblo is. We need to go back and brand Siblo moving forward to be that city of choice, to be that destination that people want to come to. Street maintenance. They're doing a little bit better job on street maintenance than we are, and we need to fix that. The permit process. Again, we know that we're undermanned in planning and engineering, and it makes it difficult to get the permit process as efficient as it should be, and we're working on that. But that's something we got to plan for. That strategic planning comes into place. And then business attraction. As we grow, we want to be able to get economic development to get these businesses into the city of Siblo to make us, again, that city of choice. So another couple of questions. Is a change in technology threatening the viability or reputation of the city? What threats do your weaknesses put the city and our community at risk of? And do changes in lifestyle, social patterns, and et cetera pose a threat to our organization and community? Again, if y'all have some comments or some ideas tonight and want to discuss them, feel free. If y'all want to, again, write those down and send them to Mr. Reed.
I know Mr. Reed's listening. I've just got one comment. We need to work on getting some fiber. If we want those technology, if you want the technology to come, businesses to come here, we've got to get, GVAC or whoever it may be to get the fiber in the grounds for us or on the poles. So.
Right, it's a huge part of the infrastructure thing, right? Is wastewater, water, electricity, and fiber, broadband. So
that's what we need is a broadband because that's absolutely.
Yeah, I second that. That's a good one, Councilman Hicks. Also, gas, I think, is a good one too. If we can expand the gas infrastructure around here. I've heard that a lot of restaurants don't want to come and set up shop, if they don't have gas to cook with. And so I think expanding the availability of our underground gas, natural gas, would be a huge step forward.
Yes, sir.
I know Bill Miller's won't come anywhere as close unless they've got gas. And that's one of the reasons why we're getting HEB where we got gas there now, so.
Okay.
Well, I spoke with Mr. Reed, and I want to, again, echo Chief's, what he said at the beginning is it's so very important that we take this serious. You know, we asked our city manager to do a task here, and we asked him to execute it. I think he's done a very good job, and Chief, you presented it very well.
Thank you.
I think he's done a very good job, put a lot of thought, and obviously has a lot of man hours into this. And Mr. Reed, I know you're at home probably on your second bowl of popcorn, but we appreciate your efforts putting this together, and I will challenge council to get their analysis turned in by Monday to Nicole so that we can, so that Mr. Reed can continue to do his job. Otherwise, I'm going to caution council that, you know, as opinionated as you are at the council meetings and everything, you really have this opportunity to have a voice and direct our city manager and in turn, direct our staff into what we need to be concentrating our efforts on. And if you don't do it, then you kind of miss the boat here. So I'm going to challenge our council a little bit here to do their part of be a small piece of a much bigger puzzle and come through on this. So
Absolutely. Ask your constituents, you know, what they'd like to see. That way you can pass that along. So.
I would just ask that we have until Tuesday to turn this in.
I don't think that would be an
Yeah,
issue, Councilman Quinn.
Because Monday's a holiday and I've
Yes,
got
sir.
some things going on Monday that
Yes,
just
sir.
aren't going to
No,
allow me to probably
I
get
don't
to
think
this.
that'd be an issue. The rest of us are going to turn it in Monday, but that's okay.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
That's okay. I'll turn mine in Sunday then, okay?
No, I don't think it'd be an issue. Any more, do we have any more commentary on this? It's very, very healthy, great discussion, Councilwoman Cunningham.
I'm really excited about this. I've done a lot of strategic planning and SWOT analyses, and Mr. Reed's timeline is very ambitious. It's very short. Some of the ones that I've been a part of for Bexar County for the health impact SWOT planning, it was called the CHIP, which is the same as the insurance company, so it got really confusing there for a minute. But when we did that, it took several months where we met once a week for months on end. And then after that, we still had to meet in small groups as subcommittees for each of the major goals. So I'm very impressed with Mr. Reed's ambition with this and with his efficiency and how he's got things down. So it really is important that we do our homework beforehand, because to stay within those confines and not be putting months and months and months and months of work into this is really key. We have to have a plan. We know that right now we don't have a strategic plan. We're running a city with no plan. There's little plans here and there, but if we don't have a plan like this, then we're constantly putting out fires and we're being reactionary instead of proactive. So this is the first step to getting us kind of on track. I think the departments have done a fantastic job coming up with their individual missions and visions for their departments. And it's kind of taking all of this, it feels like my brain's like, oh, but it's kind of directing all of that energy into one direction where it's actually going to make a difference and improve everything. So I'm really excited. And I'll have to remind myself to do my homework every day. But as long as we all put the effort in and reach out and talk to our district members, I think we'll have a really good final outcome.
And I think it's going to, obviously this is the first step, but I think it's going to be more than just this, right? Because there's going to be some more workshops. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that's going to take place, because again, I'm a strategic planner by trade as well. So yeah, this is phenomenal. What the staff, what Mr. Reed has done, and I'm excited about this. So yeah,
Gives us a lot of opportunity to kind of lay the groundwork and then have those later meetings to evolve and really streamline and snip in on it. And I'm excited.
Just a reminder, we've got a strategic workshop the day after our next. So we need everybody there as much as possible. So plenty of time to ask off.
Okay, if there's not any other commentary. Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome, sir.
You muscled through that. Next time we'll bring you up for the SWOT analysis.
Boom. We'll have visual aids for that one.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Simics is walking up to the podium. We have the discussion overview. If the last one didn't excite you, this one will. The overview of the history and why Cibilo's redistricting, Cibilo's growth, legal standards, process timelines, and next steps of the city of Cibolo in redistricting. So folks, this is a very important step and a big, really a monumental step that our voters asked us to take here in the last election. And we want to turn this over to Ms. Simics and learn about what to expect here in the future.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And also, I'd just like to say that helping me present tonight is also going to be Lisa Gonzalez and Frank Garza.
Yes, ma'am.
So to start with, I'm going to do the overview first on what you're going to expect to see from us tonight. We're going to discuss the redistricting history. Why is Siblo redistricting? Okay. The Ciblo's growth, the legal standards, the process, our timeline, and the next steps that are going to be required. We're going to be asking for your feedback and your direction on the process that we're going to do. And what does the council desires are on public input? Are we going to follow the same type of effort that we did last time we redistrict with town hall meetings, council workshops, public hearings, open houses? So we're going to ask you that at the very end of this presentation. I'm going to start with the redistricting history. And first, I want to, for some of you, not all of you may realize, how did we get to districts to begin with? So that's not on your slide. So I'm going to kind of give you just a little bit of history there. In December of 2010, I received a petition by citizens of Siblo to put on the ballot to establish single-member districts. And that petition was certified by the city secretary and then sent to the city council. In February 2011, city council approved the ordinance to call this special election to establish single-member districts. And the existing structure prior to that time, we were in places. When we became a home rule city in 2004, we had 5 places. In 2007, it went to 7 places. And that's what we were prior to establishing districts. In May 2012, we had our election. We had 436 people or voters that voted in favor of going to districts, and we had 420 votes against districts. So we only had a 16-point difference between going to districts and not going to districts. In June of 2012, the council presentation on legal issues and the process for redistricting, and we had a discussion action about the process for creating single-member districts. In August of that year, council discussed and approved a resolution adopting the criteria used in districting. In September of 2012, we had a town hall meeting, and it was done at the San Angelo Corporation, and some of you may have attended that meeting. In September, council also had a workshop. It was done at Fire Station number 2 over on Cibolo Valley Drive, where we reviewed draft boundaries and maps. At that time, the council was given 2 different sets of maps. We had 2 different options that were presented. And the council did go with the second option, which is the districts that we are in today. In October, the demographer made a presentation to council on the process and the criteria. And in January of 2013, we had our public hearing at the city council meeting. And we did have a number of people that spoke both in favor and opposing districts at that time. We had an open house in April of 2013. And ordinance number 1053 adopted the new district map showing the 7 single-member districts. And even during the open house in the council meeting, there were several council members that you know, if you remember the meetings that we had back then, the first time we met, some of the districts were divided between backyards and maybe a part of a house was in one district and not in another in another district. And one of the maps that the council did not go with, just to kind of give you a little bit more history on it, was where they took the council seats that we had at that time, and they kind of made sure that they still kept in a district. And all the council members didn't agree with that. They thought that the map should be where it should be cut and dry. Just because we're going to have 2 members in one district, that was okay with the council that was sitting up there at the time. If they both decided to run, they would both be on the ballot, and the citizens would decide who would be in that district. So that's kind of a little bit more history about how we got there. The ordinance 1055 declared the amendments to the home rule charter, and it included the 7 single-member districts. In 2013 was the first time the city actually held an election for the districts. And the reason for that is because during the 2010 census, we had a challenge to our census. So we could not start with the demographer until after we had a good census number. So that's why it took until November of 2013 before we had our first district election. The U.S. Constitution mandates that a census be taken every 10 years. And again, we just had a new census taken in 2020. The 2020 COVID caused a 7-month delay in our census, and we just received those numbers just a few months ago. The Siblo voters approved the filing in November of 2021 to amend the city charter to change from 7 single-member districts to 4 single-member districts and 3 at-large districts. And the charter proposition included specific transition language, which Mr. Garza is going to go through with you right now.
Mayor and Council, specifically, one of the good points regarding working with the Charter Commission and getting input from the council, specifically Mayor Pro Tem Hicks, this transitional language gives this council time to develop these districts. And specifically, as you know, in November 2021, we had an election. Those individuals who were elected in November 2021 will continue to serve in the districts they were elected in. There are 3 council districts that are going to be elected in November 2022, and they will continue to serve in the districts that are currently in place. There is no election in November of 2023. So in November of 2024 will be the very first time elections for the newly created districts 1 and 4 and at-large districts 5 and 6 will take place. And then in November of 2025, elections for the newly created districts 2 and 3 and at-large council district 7 and mayor will take place. So that gives, again, this council plenty of time to develop the maps and get public input with regards to the new 4 districts. So again, why is Sibilo redistricting? As stated, both the U.S. Constitution and federal law require that the districts mainly contain roughly equal population as required by both the Constitution and federal law. The other reason we're redistricting, even if we lived in a perfect world and all 7 districts were equal population, we're now going to have to revise from 7 districts to 4 districts. So those are the 2 reasons We need to make sure that the 4 districts that are going to be developed, that the council will finally approve, will have roughly equal population with regards to that. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to kind of give you the current population statistics and where we're at with the how we're growing and so forth.
See here, thank you. I think y'all have been updated on our population, where we've been thank you, in regards to what the census declared us at for 2020. But since 2000, our population has grown nearly 1,000%, from 3,000 to 32,000, with projections surpassing 50,000 within the next 10 to 15 years. With this in mind, districts with undeveloped land have fostered this growth. There you go. Of course. On this slide, we had our GIS department generate a council district map with population of each district. As the district color gets darker, the higher the population. So just based on this map, the District 3 and District 4 reflect the greatest disparity. Since the 2013 districting, District 3 and 6 remain stagnant, whereas 4 and 5 have more than doubled. So you can see on the color chart that is depicted at the bottom, each district on the map, the darkest color as being 4, is the one with the highest population. And I will allow Mr. Garza to go into a little bit more legal standards on this topic.
So what should the council consider when they're developing their map? Well, first of all, there's mandatory criteria, discretionary criteria. One, the mandatory criteria, again, 1 person, 1 vote, roughly equal proportion population. Also, you are required to maintain racial minority representation if you have, so specifically not to break up, to dilute minority representation. The discretionary criteria is compactness and contiguity, following lines of political units, following geographic boundaries, continuity again, and communities of interest. You're trying to keep groups that you don't want to divide groups that have always been represented together and so forth. And that's one of the reasons for the discretionary criteria. Again, the mandatory criteria, the 1 person, 1 vote. Under the Constitution and under case law, districts should have an equal population of no more than a 10% deviation. And what that is, you look at the total population and you look at the districts, and the acceptable deviation is 10%, which means from the largest district to the smallest district, there should be no more than a 10% deviation between them. There we go. And so the goal, if you look at the first slide, it shows the disproportion that one district having more population than the other. And then after, the goal is to hopefully show that there's a rough proportionality of the districts so that no district is greater than the other. If you go to the next slide, again, as Lisa pointed out, there's some, if we were maintaining the current 7 districts, you can see that some of these districts are roughly out of proportion and need to be modified. And something else we need to consider, the 2020 census just was released in the latter part of 2021. We are already in 2022. So even if we were to draw the lines for the 7 using the census 2020 census, you're going to probably be a little bit off as well. So I always recommend that when you're drawing the districts, you look at potential future growth and take that in consideration. So maybe the districts that are going to grow the fastest, you put less population in those as opposed to those that are going to be stagnant. But again, you have to still stay within the 10%. Again, we wanted to show this map with the population of the 2020 census of 32,276. The perfect districts would all have 8,069. So if you did the 5% deviation of less and greater, the smallest district should have no less than 7,666, and the largest district should have no more than 8,472. But again, as I mentioned, you look at growth, and what you might want to develop is one that grows is 8% above, and then the smallest district is no more than 2% below. So you still maintain that 10% deviation, but you're planning for potential future growth as well. I'll turn this back over to Lisa on the current demographics.
Thank you, sir. What this slide is primarily emphasizing is the diversity by census tract and per the districts. When you look closely, the census tract do not follow our districts. However, what this map provides is a visual idea of where our diversity lies within the city boundaries, which is identified in red or outlined in red. The darker the green color on the map is the more diverse of that area. So when you're looking at one race and more than one race, that's the darker of the green colors on this map. And that is something else that Mr. Garza will also provide more in-depth information on.
So again, the mandatory criteria, you have to maintain racial minority representation. Section 2 of the 65 Voting Rights Act is still in play. You may have recalled that part of the Voting Rights Act was thrown out, and that's Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, where you have to get Justice Department approval. That is no longer a requirement, where you have to get the federal government to approve any changes that you make, but you still have to comply with Section 2. And basically, a district plan may not have the purpose or effect of diluting minority representation. You're to avoid cracking, which is dividing a geographic compact group of minority voters to fragment their voting power, or packing is concentrating minority voters in a single district when dividing them would permit the group to elect their candidates of their choice in more than one district. So those are two things that you still have to look at when developing your map. And again, the demographer would be well aware of this process. Go to the next slide. You're also supposed to prevent gerrymandering. Again, avoiding placing majority of minority voters in one district, avoid fragmentation of minority communities, and be aware of legal constraints. The district is to provide the city is to provide best opportunities to elect council members who reflect Cibilo's diverse population and promote compactness. Next slide. One of the cases that developed the law with regard to redistricting is that race, ethnicity, and language minority considerations cannot be the predominant factor to which other district legal principles are subordinated. In other words, race can be a factor, it can, or language minority can be a factor, it cannot be the predominant factor when looking and developing plans. You're supposed to narrowly tailor your districts to comply with the Voting Rights Act. Next slide. This is, I love showing this because this is what started the Shaw v. Reno case. If you look at the yellow district, that was the district that was found unconstitutional in the Shaw v. Reno case. It was a district that was drawn to make sure that one group was represented, and therefore that district, again, was found unconstitutional. And I thought it was a great example to show why the court ruled that that was illegal. Again, a district is continuous if all the lines that create it are connected. A district consisting of two or more unconnected areas is not contiguous, and that's one of the things that they found in this case. The shape of a district, you're to avoid truly bizarre shaped districts, and that's what I mean by the North Carolina example. It's not to say it's automatic, but it's a great argument to show if a truly bizarre district that could have been what you're trying to achieve or not, or to compact. The functional factors you're supposed to look at is following lines and political units. You follow geographic boundaries. Do not split voter precincts. As Peggy mentioned early on, there was a house that was split in between. What the major goal, because when you run an election, it's the county running the election. They hate voting precincts being split, because when you go vote, which side do you live on, and so forth. So they truly focus on trying not to split voter precincts. Also, you want to maintain, again, your communities of interest, and again, travel within the district to make sure you know the district and so forth, that you're developing those lines and your demographer is aware and is knowledgeable of your district. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Peggy as to the next steps.
So other considerations are timing. The districts must be adopted at least 3 months before the election. That's Texas Election Code 276.006. The census protest creates timing and cost issues, and we need to wait for finalization of the protests. And non-annexation agreements could also be another consideration. The next slide, please. The redistricting process. Now, this may look long, but we'll go over through this process. In August of 2022, we solicit for a demographer. In October of 2022, the council awards the contract to a demographer. We approve with the delay effect date to November of 2022 and traditional language from the city charter. January of 2023, the city council directs the demographer. February to October, we have public hearings, public input. November of 2023, the city council approves of new district boundaries. In January of 2024, publicize districts to the public and potential candidates. The form of publications can be by city newsletter, websites, newspapers, social media, physical locations, and any other type of publications that the council may want. May of 2024, council to call the November 2024 election. July through August of 2024, city council applications are received. And in November of 2024, District 1 and 4, and at the large districts of 5 and 6. And in November of 2025, Districts 2 and 3, and at large District 7 and the mayor. And of course, as you already heard, in November of 2023, we would have no elections. And by November of 2025, we would now be in compliance with what the charter change was. So at this time, we would like to get the council's feedback, and basically any questions that you may have, both Frank and Lisa and myself are here to help answer those questions. And we'd like to find out also what the council's desire is in the form of public input. As in previous districting, we did use town hall meetings, council workshops, public hearings at the city council meetings, and we had an open house. There may be other ways that the council you may wish us to use. So this is your opportunity to give us directions on what you would like, and any type of questions that you may have on redistricting. We're here to help you. Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Allen had a question.
Well, I'd like to, if possible, include whole neighborhoods as part of a district. I know that may or may not end up being possible, but it's kind of confusing sometimes when you've got a sliver of a neighborhood that's in District 5 and then the other 80% is in District 1. And so since we're looking at 4 big districts, and so we're trying to get to some pretty large numbers, if possible, I'd like to, to try to keep it by neighborhood. And then as far as accounting for future growth, I think we can take a look at undeveloped land areas within the city limits and take a look at the current zoning and then try to forecast out that way. And so I'm not sure if that's, what's being considered, but I think that'd be a good way to take a look at it based on current zoning.
Councilwoman Cunningham?
I was going to say, similar to what Mark said about future development, I would like to have the maps drawn as much as possible so that we have a good longevity of the districts, that we're not coming back in 3 years and saying, oh, well, we're way out of compliance now. Look, this district has twice as many as the others. So I'm sure the demographers are very smart and know their stuff. But I'd like to make sure that we do incorporate that because we have a significant amount of our city south of 78, and that's all starting to trickle in, getting developed. But I'd like to make sure that we aren't having to turn around in 2 or 3 years and having lines drawn again because now we're out of compliance. And do you know what the normal longevity is for districts when cities draw districts? Is there like a?
Usually the longevity is the 10 years, the census. There's very few charters, and there are some that state that once it's reported that a district has gone above a certain percentage over the large and small, that they redistrict. But because of the cost, they usually wait the 10-year census.
Thank you.
Councilor Quinn?
As far as getting the public involvement, I think that we start messaging earlier than later, right? So we start sending messages out on Facebook or social media, whatever the case, however it is, putting it on the water bills or whatever, saying, hey, look, we are in the process of going to redistrict. We want your input, whatever the case might be. And we start like now, not like now, but like sooner than wait until 2023 and all that stuff when we start having the workshops and everything. But I think getting that message out now saying, hey, look, it's passed. We're going this way. What say Joe Public and the citizens of Siblo? How do you think we should attack this and eat this elephant? Because it's going to be a huge elephant to eat as we move forward.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I have to agree with Councilman Allen on the subdivisions, because if you go to Cibolo Valley Ranch, there's a very distinct, it looks like it cuts people's yards, and it actually does. It's a very unique diagonal, it's like almost a triangle. That's District 4 button up to District 7. So it's confusing. They're like, yeah, you've got my vote. And then, oh, I'm District 4, I can't vote. So if we can make subdivisions, we've got that 10% leniency. So I have to agree with that.
Or if it's not possible to do full subdivisions, because we do have several large subdivisions like Turning Stone, like Cibolo Valley Ranch, if we could try to do both sides of the same street, so that if you live on Saddlehorn, you know that you're in the same district, even though you're across the street neighbors in the same district as you are.
A la Falcon Ridge.
Yes, it gets very tricky because people will ask questions and they don't really know who to reach out to.
Right.
Yeah, and the fact that having the at-large members cures I know what the premise of that was, if you didn't agree with one representation in your HOA, then you have another council member, but that won't be the case with this. So. But very good presentation, you all. Thank you for putting the time in, and very informative. Yeah, and then the only other thing, Frank, that I, again, add is that just because you're in a district now, by the time your election comes up, you could be representing another district depending on what was. So that's the only really goofy nuance that we're going to have to overcome, which we will. So any other items? L, discussion and direction of staff on planning and zoning and the Economic Development Corporation and the way we appoint to the committees. Councilman Hicks.
The reason why I bring this up is basically because we're going to be changing. I know that everybody wants their own representation, which I think we should continue that. However, in the last few months, I'll tell you, we've struggled for P&Z to be able to have quorum. And luckily, Mr. Bone had given up his spot for a person in District 5 to represent his District 3. But we really need to look at, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this tonight. I just wanted to bring it up that we really need to look at when we go to appoint these, we want to keep it to where you have no more than 2 or no more than 3 people from one specific district. However, we've got to look at this because once we go to the 4 districts and, you've got 3 people at large, you could have 3 people at large in one district. I mean, I hope it doesn't go that way. I hope that people in our city will get out and they will all strive to give back and do their due diligence to give back to the city. So I just wanted to bring this up because we have been struggling in our planning and zoning. In fact, Mr. Hetzel, he was already elected, but he wasn't sworn in yet. We had to call him and say, hey, Mr. Hetzel, one last P&Z meeting because otherwise we don't have quorum. And there was a lot of information on that agenda, as Ms. Gonzalez can attest. There was a lot of information on that agenda in November, but yet we didn't have enough people to have a quorum. And you had 3 people here sitting here and you had people in the audience. You had the staff stayed late. We've got to look at that. So I just wanted to bring it up and we can discuss it later, but that's anything, Ms. Simics?
Well, we're still struggling with the planning and zoning because we still have 2 openings, which is District 1 and District 6. And we do have a couple alternates, but they have not been attending. So it's still a struggle with the planning and zoning, even to this day right now. Hopefully tomorrow we have enough people for a meeting because that really affects the planning and zoning on certain things that have to be approved if they have a timeline.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this is because we do have that new state law. If we don't pass it, they bring it to the city gets it, and we're not able to do anything with it. Well, in 15, 30 days, bam, it's automatically approved. So shot calls, yes.
So, go ahead.
Yep, Councilwoman Cunningham.
Thank you. I would, in last month's agenda packet, we had a list of everyone who was appointed to the different committees. It was a little confusing because there were dates there of their appointment date, but it didn't say whether it was their original appointment date, when they were supposed to be reappointed. And so like we were reappointing someone to one committee when someone else on that list for that same committee had an earlier date. And it just was a little confusing for me. So if we could get an updated list with maybe their original appointment date, when they're supposed to be reappointed. And then I think, do we have term limits for committees?
Yes, ma'am, we do. It's 6 years, and I have started a new roster. So when you get it in February, you will have a new roster, and it will have an original date. And so it'll also tell you when their 6 years is up. So
That's fantastic. Thank you. That will help a lot with our planning.
Thank you.
Moving forward. And also, this may be, I don't know if it's a legal question or if it's a Peggy question. Alternates for committees, is P&Z the only committee that we have alternates for? If not, or if so, either way, can we look at appointing alternates for other committees as well?
The only committee that does not have alternates is the EDC Corporation. Every other committee has alternates.
Okay, thank you.
To caveat on the alternate piece, are we constrained by the 2 alternates, or can we add like a third alternate or whatever so that we have a couple more alternates? I mean, and if alternates aren't coming to the meetings, then we need to probably look at it and add alternates that are willing to come to the meetings, because more than likely or not, somebody's going to sit on the meeting, because there's many meetings where 5, 6 only show up.
Sir, it's just not the alternates. I mean, you do, your policy does say they have to attend so many meetings a year. And it's up to that chairman or whoever is in charge of those committees to bring that back to the council to let them know that they're missing
this person's
multiple
not showing up.
meetings. And that's not happening. I mean, I could do that, but that's not my job to do that. That's why we have chairman and a vice chairman on these committees. And that's their job to tell the council, or maybe their council rep that says, hey, this person is not making these meetings,
And I think
Because
we
you
need to
can
know
look at
that.
Mr. Hicks, and he was on the P&Z meeting as an alternate for almost his whole darn time. And then once we did appoint him, or y'all appointed him to to a permanent spot, then his time was already up on that.
Yeah.
Or that's how we portrayed it, so.
Yeah. So I would say that we need to be aware of people not showing up. And if the chair is not doing that, we need to engage. And I know, Peggy, that you're at all these meetings, but I mean, I would lean on you a little bit too, to say, hey, listen, let us know if people aren't showing up, because we need to have an understanding. And if they're missing consecutive meetings, then we need to do something.
At one time, sir, I used to submit when you did your appointments, I submitted along with that an attendance record for every person on every committee. And I was told not to do that anymore a number of years ago, so I haven't done that. But I do know who's attending every meeting. I have to put it in the minutes, and I can start a new chart for you that says who's attending the meetings and who's not attending the meetings.
I think we would like that. I don't think anybody on this council would disapprove of that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, please, can you please do that for us, Miss Peggy?
I have no
Thank you so
problem with
much.
that.
Yes.
Councilman Benson?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think it's important to understand a couple of things. The districting thing, and I know mine was just called out. I'm looking, I think I might have somebody who's going to drop an application, but if not, we'll go from there. But I think it's important to understand, especially in planning and zoning, I don't think this is a district by district thing that needs to be done. I think we really need to look at this. This is very much a legal thing. And I know we don't want to have everybody from District 5 or 4 and 5 are the only two represented. But the reality of that this is some sort of, I don't know, divided by district issue. It's not. It's does this meet the UDC's requirements pretty much, right? And so, I mean, I think we can kind of take my guy or your gal is there out of the whole P&Z, because that's not the mission of that issue. It's a really very illegal thing, and it needs to be kept that way. And so, if it comes down to I can't find anybody, I have no problem. There was a lady here a couple meetings ago, and I'm texting somebody in the audience saying, hey, get her name, right? I mean, she came prepared. She's exactly what we need, but she's in District 5, right? And so then it's like, well, so we really do need to address this. And the other thing, if we're going to address this, I really think is looking at term limits. The issue for me is that as a council, we're going to have to make some of these decisions and figure out what's going on with the planning and zoning. Some of that power was brought back here because of some things that happened. But I think the reality of it is that it takes a little while to figure out what you're supposed to be doing as a planning and zoning commissioner. And sometimes by the time you figure that out, your time's up. And so we've got people that want to serve, and we've timed them out, and they're like, okay, right? And I don't know that it's a big power play to keep a planning and zoning commissioner there for beyond 6 years. I don't think that there's any real harm in people who want to serve and do that kind of thing, which is a very technical kind of look at things in that role longer. So, I mean, I think we could look at a couple of things while we're looking at this. And those are my two, after been there for 6 years, those are kind of my two takeaways, that I don't think it's something that we have to limit by term and or by district. So
Thank you.
That's a great commentary. And one way to help do that, the term limits, is, they could sit for 6 years in the seat, and then they're immediately eligible to be an alternate after that. Yeah. That way, that they could still be helping the cause, serving their community, and being that number that's counted. And, the voters, they spoke last election, and they really didn't put a big emphasis on single member districts, and chose to go to this. So the intent is, we want quality folks, to the people that are excited about. And, if you put this in perspective, District 6 and 3 and 1 are landlocked. Well, that also tells you that there's not a lot of in my backyard issues coming up, and or new businesses coming in. And so there's not a lot of. Yes, sir. And yeah, and it's going to take a lot to get them excited to come, so it's, you have that hurdle, that that you're dealing with. So, I would say a lot of great commentary, adding more alternates, take a hard look at the term limits. But at the bottom line, like Councilman Hicks said, we got to get these things in and out and get them rolling and get these meetings well attended with prepared folks that show up. So, I think we're all on the same page here, but it's going to take somebody to author this, Councilman Hicks. So,
Mayor,
I haven't got enough on my plate, okay?
to change the alternates, we'd have to bring back our ordinances, which is not a problem. I can easily do that. The other part is in your policy, and I'm getting ready to send all those policies to the council. So if you could do your, look through the policies and kind of scratch out what you would like to see, so I can kind of combine them and then come back at a council meeting with, you guys can give me some suggestions so we can redo those and then come back with another approval sooner than later so that we can get some of that going.
okay, and that's perfect, Peggy. And yeah, if you could, would you please maybe highlight or extract some of the, so that we don't miss it and we approve a policy that
I
we're
will
going to be
definitely make sure
reapproving
I do
later.
that. Yes, sir.
I know you always do, but yeah, we don't want this discussion to go on forever. We want to get this fixed and move on. So, okay. All right. Very good. Item M, discussion from council members that have attended seminars, events, and meetings. Councilman Hicks.
I attended a luncheon today. They had a group there. Ransom Life is what it's called. And their discussion is, if anybody's heard of it, is about the sex trafficking and the trafficking of people. And they can, they came and they did a great presentation at the luncheon today. And I know that people were talking about possibly bringing them to the Shirts Chamber luncheon and having them, but they go around to the different schools because of how the young kids are putting stuff on social media that they probably shouldn't, or they're having fights with their parents. It was a good presentation. It'd be a good presentation. I don't want to have it brought to us, but if y'all can seek out and find out what it's called, Ransom Life. And then I had my AAMPO meeting on Friday. No real changes there. Everything's moving smooth in that direction. So that's all I got.
So the Steele High School football team received an award here last week for their community involvement. And so I want to recognize and hats off to those young men that have been recognized for helping in our community. So a good job, well done. The Siblo Summer Nights, we are early in our planning. We actually have a planning meeting this week. So if you know of any, I'm going to challenge our council or anyone else, if you know of any groups that are interested in helping with the Cibolo Summer Nights program. I know last 2 years it was a little stagnant because of, well, a lot stagnant because of COVID. But we plan on engaging in these different organizations and bringing them in to help run this. The Boy Scouts, football teams, the Miss Siblo, you name it. We spoke even other organizations like Corvette Club. We spoke with them the other day, and they were interested. But we truly need to get back to an organic group that all chips in and participates to make this a success. So it's FYI. Any other items from council members? Discussion on council items for future agendas. I think we got full plate. Mark.
I I know I've asked several times for an agenda item on the roads update. It seems to keep eluding our agendas here.
Yes, sir, I can address that one, Mark. So speaking with Mr. Reed, we had, because of this, in the last one's agendas so heavy, but also there was some key information that we needed to plug in. So I believe either next meeting or the first week meeting in February is when we haven't forgot about it. So-
Can we get it on the next meeting? Because I mean, we've gone probably about 4 months without an update.
Yes, sir. Okay. If we could put that for the next meeting. Councilman? Yes, sir.
Sorry. Okay. I know in the past we had asked our city manager, both prior and current, to have more frequent updates from the EDC, in executive session, and those updates have also eluded our agendas.
Good. Perfect. Councilman Cunningham?
I'd like to see some kind of presentation or discussion on speed mitigation on residential streets and how we can maybe partner with HOAs and neighborhoods to figure out what streets are having issues and options for that. Speed bumps are not an option for every road. We know that. Stop signs aren't an option for every road. We know that too. There's a lot of streets. I just saw complaints about one in Foxbrook. My neighborhood, the 2 streets in my neighborhood are both speed zones. Buffalo Crossing has Buffalo Crossing and Bison Lane that are having a lot of speeders. So as we have more people move into town and all these neighborhoods come in, I think it would be prudent to discuss it now so that when developers come in and want to build these neighborhoods that we see have a long stretch of street, that maybe we bring it up before they even build the street so that we can build more aesthetically pleasing speed limitation devices as opposed to slapping some speed bumps in the middle of the road. I'd also like to maybe have a presentation on water services and utility billing. I noticed this week there were a lot of red tags that went out. And I had two people in my district reach out about the utility billing, saying that the system changed a few months ago. It's a lot trickier. They had paid, but it didn't go all the way through or something. I'm not familiar with it too much, but I know that it's been an issue. And I saw at least 4 red tags just on my little section of street, and I haven't seen any tags in at least a year. So an update on that and what leads to a tag, what the timeline is for that, and how the billing system works, and if there are any identified glitches. I know we had that court glitch with the software. I'm wondering if there might have been one with this. If there is an excessive number of late payments, maybe there was an issue with the system.
Mr. Quinn.
Did you have one?
Mine was roads. And then it'll come back to me.
Okay.
I'd like an update on when will we be meeting the downtown people for the nuisance and the noise ordinance, please?
We will have that on the next agenda.
Downtown triggered me. Trash cans for downtown, trash receptacles for downtown. I know we've talked about this in the past, but I'd like to have a discussion about it, where we can set them up so that people can throw their trash away and everything along that lines instead of throwing it in the streets and everything.
Absolutely, because Sunday morning, there's beer cans all over downtown Cibolo.
So we can have a discussion about that.
Yes, sir.
One quick thing. I mentioned fiber optic a while ago. I would appreciate maps from AT&T, Spectrum, and GVEC as to where they've gone thus far in the
Well,
city.
apparently AT&T runs right down 1103 because they.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they don't do too dadgum well over in 3009, so.
Thank you, Colonel. All right. Upcoming special meetings, workshops, and scheduling time, place, dates for special meetings. So Ms. Simmons, before I turn this over to you, I want to thank you for working with several folks and taking the time and working with the history committee. The beautiful wall that you guys have put up, you and Ed. It certainly adds a lot of character to our chambers, but thank you very much.
Okay, for the January calendar, I had a few changes that, since this went into your packet. So the EDC meeting that's scheduled for next week is canceled. They're not going to have a January meeting. The Historic Committee that was supposed to meet this Thursday is going to meet on that day instead. So I just want a reminder again that we have our strategic workshop on the 26th. It's going to be held over at Noble Group. It's minor snacks in the morning, and we will provide lunch. Again, on the 31st, we have our senior opening at 9 o'clock, and we have our fire station number 3 opening at 3 p.m. February, I don't have any changes into the calendar that I gave to you. I do remind everybody that this coming Monday is a holiday for the city, so offices will be closed. And one other thing that you don't have this calendar, but I'd like you to all know that we met as a group the other day, and our Siblo Fest is going to be scheduled for 1 October this year. And we will be bringing back more information on Siblo Fest very shortly here, as we had promised in a few meetings ago. So that will be coming up. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
A Northeast Partnership is Thursday also.
Thank you, Joel. Next, we have the ordinance 10A, approval, disapproval. The ordinance, the City of Cibolo establishing zone and classification of certain real property located parallel to Dean Road, north of Saratoga subdivision and east of Willow Bridge subdivision, comprised of 41.148 acres from low-density residential to medium density. Ms. Gonzalez.
One more item. This is the ordinance action item for this rezoning. We conducted the public hearing at the last city council meeting. And for tonight, we are approving or disapproving an ordinance to rezone from SF2 to SF4 for property that is located on Dean Road, and it is owned by multiple owners. Oh, thank you for pulling up the map. Multiple owners, and the applicants are Chesmar Homes, and we're looking at approximately 41 acres in District 5. The project title is La Cima at Turning Stone, and the property owners have attempted to rezone in the past, however, did not receive favorable recommendations from the surrounding community, P&Z, or council. Prior to an official zoning application, the applicants requested feedback from the Planning and Zoning Commission at the July 14th meeting. The discussion provided direction to the potential developers as to current issues that would hinder the zoning. The previous request was for an SF5, and that was in August of 2021, and they received a denial. The applicants and owners have reevaluated their development and are now requesting SF4 collectively for a residential subdivision. The property where it lies in regards to our future land use map is considered neighborhood residential, and it is surrounded by neighborhood residential. And what this entails is anything from the SF1 to, well, actually it's more SF3 to SF6 district. Rural residential would be the lighter of the areas. In regards to the zoning map, it is primarily surrounded by SF5 and SF2 zoning to the north and to the east and to the south. The SF6 zoning district is to the south and to the west of the property. And the primarily current uses of these properties that surround it are 2 subdivisions, Saratoga subdivision and Willow Bridge subdivision, with agricultural surrounding to the north and east. With the 2 public hearings conducted with the Planning and Zoning Commission in December and with City Council in December, we have notated in the staff report the citizens' comments that were voiced during those meetings, and we did post it in the newspaper, and we posted it on the website, on the site, as well as sent notice to 89 property owners. Staff received from those 89 0 letters in favor and 12 letters in opposition. I did note at the last public hearing that we did receive a couple in favor of, however, they are the applicants for the rezoning.
Of course.
And I wanted to state that at the last meeting too, because they had concerns with why their responses were not included in our tally. So at the December 8th P&Z meeting, the commission recommended denial by a 4-1 vote. If you have any questions for staff, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Councilman Quinn?
So I have major concerns about this development. Again, it is zoned SF2, and we've had major discussions in the past about, having lower density as compared to higher density subdivisions. So why would we want to take a prime piece of real estate and let them pack as many houses on there as they want? So with the impervious coverage, flooding issues that we've heard from the neighbors, and even the infrastructure issues that they're going to have, right? Because there's already low water pressure up in that area for a lot of the houses that are up there already, right? So we add more houses, means lower water pressure, the list goes on and on and on, right? And so for me, I just don't see where it benefits us as a city, where it benefits us as a community, where it benefits our citizens. To me, there's just no benefit in having this developer come in here and put 4 houses on an acre of land, period.
Councilman Allen?
And so for this one, it would take a supermajority, right, Frank, in order to approve it, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And so, it's a no for me because of infrastructure concerns. Dean Road is in no shape to have, another 100 houses, plopped on this land. Just like, Robbie has brought up many times the flooding. I drive Dean Road almost every day, and I see how high that land is up where the house is, and it just slopes all the way down to Dean Road. And so, I have concerns about potential flooding in that area, and the infrastructure just cannot support a development like this.
Real quickly, I think that one of the things over the last 6 years on planning and zoning we discussed almost repeatedly is needing something other than SF5 and SF6. So we had some places already zoned SF2. They seem to make sense up on a hill, maybe like a nice spot in the world to build a half-acre home or something. But I think that this does, besides the Dean Road and the flooding and just all the other things that are bad, I think that the reality of this is that as we stand up to these kinds of things and say, look, it's SF2, please bring us an SF2 product. And I do feel bad for the people that own the property. I understand that as a property owner, but understand that as a city, we need to keep some of this SF2. We could build out the entire city as SF6 and then just be done with it, and it's all built, and then we just go on with roads that are impassable because there's too many cars and flooding and all those things. So I think it's important sometimes to just leave the zoning the way it is, and I think this is one of those times where it's SF2 for a reason. It makes sense where it's at, especially with the infrastructure and all the other issues. So I'm a hard no.
Well, we've heard some opinions. Do you have a motion?
Make a motion. Put my glasses on. I'll make a motion to disapprove an ordinance of the city of Cibolo establishing zoning classification of certain real property located parallel to Dean Road, north of Saratoga subdivision and east of Willow Bridge subdivision, comprised of 41.148 acres from low-density residential SF2 to medium-density residential SF4.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilman Allen. I think that was a second. So we'll do the roll call. Start with you, Councilman.
Aye.
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 Motion carries to disapprove the ordinance.
Thank you.
Item 11A, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the city of Cibolo for parking lot expansion for Guadalupe County Appraisal District. Ms. Simmons.
Okay. This resolution came from the Guadalupe County. It is for a parking lot. It does not, it will not change any taxes or whatever that anybody pays to Guadalupe County. So they just ask that they're able to, they've outgrown the number of cars that come into the appraisal district. I think Councilman Hetzel can attest to that as working over there for the last few months. They just don't have enough parking, and that's what the purpose of this resolution is. Every entity has to be able to approve this resolution.
I make a motion to approve 11A as written.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Councilman Cunningham and second by Councilman Hicks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now going to go into executive session for items A and C. Item B will be postponed. Oh, okay. The time is now 9:22. Please turn your mic. All right, the time is now 10:20. We are back in open session. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the city secretary's pay increase as discussed in executive session.
Second that.
Motion's been made by Councilman Quinn, second by Councilman Hicks. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.
I'll give it to Vicky.